Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Davis and Bear. Welcome to Hope You're Curious. And here we love questions. We love curiosity. We love it when you bring us your hard questions because we believe every honest question leads to God as long as you follow it all the way to the answer. Because today it can be really hard to find good answers to your questions. I mean, some people will just dismiss you or shame you when you ask, and that's a tragedy. Other times you'll ask your question or you'll go online, try to find the answer, and there are so many wrong, bad answers out there that can just steal your faith, that can just fill you with depression instead of joy. And man, that's a tragedy too. And so we love getting your hard questions here because we want to dig into it. We want to be super honest about your question, but also be super honest about the answer. So many answers are good, and you just never get to experience it because you never give voice to your question. Or you do, and you get the wrong answer, and you have no idea it's wrong because how could you know if someone just told you that? So we love digging into the hard stuff here. That's why we exist. So bring us your hard questions. We love them. Today's question, uh, this is going to be fun. I love this question. Probably the simplest way you could ask it is just to say, what was the Star of Bethlehem? When I wrote about this in my book, my first book, I think that it was phrased, when can you see the Star of Bethlehem again? When will it next be visible? There are a ton of different ways to ask this. Was the Star of Bethlehem real? Can we identify what it was? Was it just some fanciful mythical thing? Was it a one-time, like supernatural poof that never happens again? Or was it something real, something natural that we can look back on? It's a great question because when you read the Gospel of Matthew, which is the book that talks about this, at first, it can sound weird. It can sound like, almost a Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, just fanciful, supernatural. Like, okay, there's this giant star, and you see it on the Christmas cards. The wise men and camels following this giant star that looks like a cross, and you're just like, did that really happen like that? I mean, what was going on there? Is it just did Matthew make it up to add some color to the narrative? And a lot of times when you look for the answer to this question online, that's what you find. People will say, it never really happened. Matthew just invented it to make Jesus' birth seem more spectacular. You'll find a lot of people saying things like that. But again, that's tragic. If you just leave it there and you don't press further, you get stuck in that. It's a very unsatisfying answer. It's also a very wrong answer. Because the truth of this is that, yeah, the Star of Bethlehem was real. Yes, we can tell exactly what it was. And yes, you can watch it do what Matthew says it did. The Star of Bethlehem is a real astronomical phenomenon, a real thing. So much so that you can buy an astronomy program today. Any good astronomy program that lets you wind back the clock, you can set it to Jerusalem, plug in the right dates, look in the right direction, and you can watch the Star of Bethlehem do exactly what the book of Matthew tells you it does. It's amazing. I love walking through this with people. I'm so excited to walk you through it today. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at the Gospel of Matthew. We're going to pull out the passages, see all the clues we can find from it about what the star is, what it did, and then we're just going to show it to you. And I just love it. Let me start here. This is the ground floor we're going to build on. The Star of Bethlehem is Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet, is the Star of Bethlehem. And now here, a lot of people might object and say, wait, Jupiter's a planet. I mean, the text says star. How can Jupiter be the... Okay, it's a good question. And again, we love good questions. There is no wrong question here. The reason Jupiter is the Star of Bethlehem, and it could even be a candidate for the star, is because this book was written in Greek. Matthew was written in Greek. And in Greek, the word used is the word astera. You can hear astronomy, astera. You can hear where it's coming from. And astera can refer to, yeah, a star, but it can also refer to a planet because planets are often referred to in ancient literature as moving stars. When you don't have a telescope and you can't zoom in and see what this thing looks like, all you can tell is that it's a speck of light and that it moves about in the sky. What we call stars today are kind of fixed. They don't move around a lot. They're kind of stuck in the heavens. But the planets are moving around constantly if you're watching the sky night by night. And so these planets, these moving stars, Jupiter is one of the key ones. It was often referred to as the king star because of just the incredible significance it had in the sky when people would look up in it. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here. Jupiter is the Star of Bethlehem. It really does everything the Bible says. And let's just get into this. This is going to be fun. Okay, the first passage in Matthew that talks about this is Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 2. They say this. Now, pay attention. Don't just read this as like a Bible verse to kind of, pass through your mind and then out the other side. No. Watch for all the details in this. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. Do you get that? When you look at that passage, there are actually 5 clues, at least 5 clues, as to what the star was. The first is that the star, whatever it was, whatever they saw, it signified to them kingship. Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? The wise men didn't know. They didn't have a name they were coming for. It's just whatever they saw told them a king has been born. And second, it said this is a king of the Jewish people, not just any king. They didn't come looking just for who's the king. We don't know what king. They said the king of the Jewish people specifically. Where's the new Jewish king? And something about what they saw signified him being born. Because they didn't ask, like, did he just get coronated? They didn't ask, like, did he just win a big battle? They said, no, he's been born. Something we saw told us that a king of the Jewish people has been born. They saw his star in the east, from wherever they came, east of Jerusalem, wherever they came, that's where they saw the star, and they saw it. If they saw it in the sky in the east, and they're talking about it now, they're expecting that it's something that their audience here saw and that they saw as well, because that's what they're appealing to. They're appealing to something they expect makes sense to their audience. And then fifth, they came intending to worship this King of the Jews. So that word worship is very key as well. It's not just we came to pledge our allegiance to him. It's not just we came to give him gifts, but we came to worship him. And worship especially is interesting in the Gospel of Matthew, because 2 chapters from this, Jesus will be emphatic, you worship God alone. But something the wise men saw told them, this king who has been born of the Jewish people is someone it's right for me to worship. All right, we have 5 clues already. Let's get a few more. The passage continues. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Then skip a few verses, and it says, then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. All right, so again, there's a couple of clues here. The first one is that the star appeared at an exact time that could be verified. So Herod didn't just say, oh, you saw some supernatural thing. The wise men didn't say, oh, no, it was an angel like leading the way. It wasn't a star in the heavens. No, they say, Herod asks, when exactly did the star appear? They tell him, presumably. Then the next clue is that Herod and all those in Jerusalem missed it completely. Herod has to ask, when did this star appear? So this already shatters a lot of conceptions about what the star could be. A lot of movies, a lot of drawings or pictures show like some just gigantic flashing star in the sky that you can't miss. If you were looking up the night sky, it would just be right there, the biggest star, like pointing with the ray down to Bethlehem. Like, it wasn't that, because if it was, everyone in Jerusalem would have seen it. Remember, these are people without lights. They don't have electricity. When the sun goes down, it gets dark, very dark. Sometimes you have a lamp, you can fill it with oil, you can light a little wick or a candle, but the light at night is so dim that usually people just go to bed when the sun goes down. There's not a lot happening at night. And so if it is night and you go outside and you look up at the sky, you can see everything. I mean, some of us who have grown up in cities and grown up around technology and civilization, you have no clue how amazing the night sky can be. When you get out in the wilderness and there are no lights around you and you just look up, and the magnitude, the amount of stars shining down on you is staggering. But what that means for our story here, for this question, is that if the star had been something like that, just something you would see by looking up in the night sky, and there's this big glowing, like, everyone would know. Because everyone in that ancient world would have been able to just step out of their house at night and look up, and boom, there it is. It wasn't that. Herod and everyone in Jerusalem missed it completely. It was a real thing. The wise men could tell them exactly when it happened, when it was working, when it was moving, what it was doing, but everyone in Jerusalem missed it. That's key. And then we have three more clues to gather here. The next few verses tell us, and Herod sent the wise men to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for this child, for this king who has been born of the Jews that you talked about. And when you found him, bring me word, so that I too may go and worship him." And of course, Herod's lying, but they don't know that. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them, and came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And now, again, this is where some of the movies and TV shows and pictures take kind of liberty with the text, and you see this, hovering star move, and land over the top of Bethlehem. Again, it wasn't like that, because if it was, everybody would have followed it. Something happened. The star was leading them. It did come to rest over where the child was, but it wasn't such a big supernatural glowing thing that everyone in the region would have come to find. But let's enumerate these clues specifically here. So we can tell the star endured over a long period of time. Because again, the wise men saw it in the east, they traveled to Jerusalem, now they see it again in Jerusalem, which means this wasn't just a one-time supernatural boom, come here. Whatever they saw was still there in the sky in Jerusalem, even after traveling for months to get to Jerusalem. And then the next clue, the star went ahead of them on the journey from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. So in some way, the star was leading the path, was showing them the way forward, and was going ahead of them, such that when they went from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, they were heading to the star. It was leading the way. And then the last clue, the star stopped in the sky above the place where the child was. Stopped in the sky above where the child was. So we have our 10 clues. We know what we're looking for. Now we can turn the clock back and we can see exactly what they saw. All right, this is getting good. So now remember, the first 3 clues signified to the wise men that there was a king. This king was of the Jewish people, and this king had been born. So let's look to the heavens in the ancient world and let's find this king. And the first thing we're going to find is this. Look at this picture here. Here you see Jupiter and you see Regulus. Now, Regulus, you might not recognize. Jupiter, I'm sure you do. Regulus, we now know today, is 4 stars really, really close together. Back then, they couldn't zoom in, that close with telescopes to see that. So they just saw this really bright star and called it Regulus. Today, we know it's 4 different stars. But anyway, you can see in the name Regal, Regulus, Regal. You can see that it was called the king star because of how bright it was. And Jupiter similarly was the king planet. That's how it was known in the ancient world. So you have the king star and you have the king planet. And then, like I said at the start, stars kind of stay stuck in the background. Planets are moving. And here you see a little bit of both. Regulus is a star. It's just stuck in the sky. It doesn't really move a whole lot from our perspective. Jupiter moves a whole bunch. And normally, every 12 years, Jupiter passes Regulus and just goes on its merry way. But in the year 3 BC, 3 before Christ, Jupiter does something amazing. And you can see it in the picture here. You can see those lines. Jupiter comes from the top, passes Regulus, turns around, comes back up, passes it again, and then turns around and goes back a 3rd time. You know what that is? That's a circle. That's a halo. That's a crown. In September of 3 BC, the king planet crowns the king star. So if you're looking in the heavens and you're looking for something and you see something king, this is just so clearly king, 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 king planet, king star, drawing a crown. If you're looking to the stars and you're looking for a message for what they're telling you, this is just shouting something about a king. All right, so we have king established. Now we need to look for Jewish, Judah. What told the wise men that this wasn't just any king, but specifically he was a king of the Jewish people? Well, this triple conjunction, this Jupiter passing Regulus and drawing a crown over it, that happened, like I said, in the year of September 3 BC. In the background was the constellation of Leo, the lion. Leo, the lion. Now, if you've read your Bible, even all the way back in Genesis, the lion is the symbol of the tribe of Judah. And Genesis 49 even says, Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah. The scepter, the royal scepter, the kingship shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of all the peoples. So right back in Genesis, you have Judah associated with the lion and kingship, that this king, the ruler's staff, will not depart. And so not when you see this triple conjunction taking place within Leo the lion, to the wise men, they were like, Genesis 49, Leo the lion, Judah, the king of the Jews. But again, it's not just that the king of the Jews existed or did something notable, it's that he was born. The king of the Jews has been born. So what signified birth to them? Well, let me ask you, how long does it take for a baby to be born? About 9 months on average. So if in September of 3 BC, Jupiter crowns Regulus and signifies the king of the Jews, does something happen 9 months later? And indeed, something does. Jupiter continues its way through the heavens and it approaches Venus. Now remember, Jupiter was known as the king planet. Venus was known as the mother planet. And Jupiter and Venus come together 9 months after the coronation, and they both shine together. They don't block each other out. They don't cover each other up. It's like a figure eight. So if this is Jupiter and this is Venus, they come together. They just kind of stand on top of each other, and they both shine at their full brightness, their full brilliance. And so imagine the picture for the wise men. They see the king planet crowning the king star. 9 months later, it comes to the mother planet. They shine at their full brightness, and then the king planet comes out of the mother planet. 9 months exactly. I mean, to them, it's just how much clearer could you say birth in the heavens? That 9 months after the coronation, the king planet emerges from the mother planet, and that moment of their conjunction, their emergence, is the brightest star anyone had seen in the night sky for years. God was making this very plain. The king of the Jews has been born. All right, now remember at the start we had 10 different criteria to look at. We've already covered 7 of them, believe it or not. In addition to the king of the Jews being born, we've also established that this star rose in the east, just like all stars do, that the wise men could see this plainly going on in the east where they were. We have established that the star appeared at a precise time. They could point back and say, yeah, this happened last September. You know, it started on this day, it ended on this day, this conjunction. And anyone in Jerusalem who was keeping track of the stars and what was happening in the night sky could go back and verify what they said. And then next, the star was visible, but of course missed completely by Herod and everyone in Jerusalem. Because this wasn't some gigantic pulsing, supernatural thing in the heavens. It was very plain. If you just looked up at the night sky in general, you wouldn't see anything different. You would just see the stars. You had to be paying attention. You had to be tracking Jupiter night after night, watching what it was doing. You had to be watching for Venus and Jupiter coming together. I mean, well, Venus and Jupiter, possibly the exception, because that was so bright, anybody could just look up and see, whoa, that star is really bright tonight. But if you weren't paying attention to which stars they were and what happened 9 months prior, you would miss the significance completely. And then lastly, the star endured over time so that the Magi could witness the coronation and 9 months later the birth, and then it would still be in the sky when they got to Jerusalem. Of course, it's Jupiter. It's still going to be in the sky. It hasn't gone anywhere. So we've already established 7 criterion that these wise men, these magi, witnessed in the night sky. But now there's a few more. And now we come to the most impossible seeming of the qualifications, that the star has to lead the way from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and it has to stop in the sky over where the child is. How could Jupiter do that? Pretty easily, actually. Let me back up for a second. Remember I said that the coronation happened in September of 3 BC. Jupiter passed by Regulus, crowned it, and then 9 months later, Jupiter came to Venus. They shone together in the full brightness, and then Jupiter left. When did they shine at their full brightness? In June. June of 2 BC. That's likely when Jesus was born. And so suppose the wise men are watching this. They see this happen. They see this 9-month drama. Once they see Jupiter emerge from Venus after 9 months, they know, yes, okay, he's born. He's the king of the Jewish people. Let's go meet him. They get, on their camels or their donkeys or whatever they ride. They make the journey over to Jerusalem, and let's give them a few months. They arrive somewhere around December of 2 BC. They go to Herod. They talk to him about all these things. Herod says, "Go find the child." Remember, we read that in the verse. Herod told them, "Leave Jerusalem where they were talking, go find the child in Bethlehem." And right then is when the star stops in the sky. Does that ever happen? Oh, yes, it does. Just take a look at this picture. On December 25th, 1225, 2 BC, on December 25th, Jupiter stops in the sky over Bethlehem. You see this picture. You see, 1219, December 19th, Jupiter's coming, the 21st, the 23rd, the 25th. Oh, it stops. And then it starts going back the other way. How can it do that? How can it stop? Because planets, Jupiter is moving around the sun, so is the Earth. And sometimes when they get, just in the course of how the planets are moving and where they are in relation to each other, planets seem to stop and go back. And we've already seen that in the conjunction. Jupiter passes Regulus, turns around, crowns it again. And so you see it do that turn. And every time it turns, guess what? For a day or two, it stops in the night. It's going one way, it stops, and then it goes around the other way. And right that moment, that day when it stops in the heavens, is December 25th, 2 BC. And when you're standing in the gates of Jerusalem, and you're looking south to Bethlehem, it's only about 5 miles away. You stand in Jerusalem and you're looking down to Bethlehem. Guess what star is immediately above it in the sky? Jupiter. Jupiter stopped in the sky immediately above Bethlehem, right where the child was. So the wise men see this. They must have been ecstatic. The same star that told them the King of the Jews has been born was now standing right over the town where they had just been told the child was. Because Herod, when he found this out, he went to the scribes and he said, "Where's the King of the Jews going to be born?" They said, "He's going to be born in Bethlehem." The wise men didn't know that. They had no idea such a town existed. It was only when Herod's scribes told them the child would be born in Bethlehem that they figured it out. They left the gates of Jerusalem. They looked on their map, where they were told, look down, okay, there's Bethlehem. And then they look above, and right there is Jupiter leading the way. I mean, can you imagine how fast they covered those 5 miles to get down to the town of Bethlehem? I would just be ecstatic if I was them. And they searched door to door to door until they found that Christ child. And now we come to our last qualification: worship. Because they didn't just come to pledge allegiance to this new king. They didn't just come to give him gifts. They came to worship him. Why? How did they know to worship this king who has been born of the Jews? 700 years before this drama happened in the heavens, before Jupiter went through all these things to tell people the King of the Jews had been born, Isaiah wrote, "For to us a child is born, a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Whoever these wise men were, whoever these magi were that were watching the heavens, who saw that the King of the Jews has been born, they knew enough of the Hebrew Scriptures to know that this is the child. This is mighty God given to us as a son, as a child. This child is born. He is mighty God in the flesh. His birth is signaled in the heavens. And so when the wise men see it, they come ready to bow down and worship this king, to worship this King of the Jews. Can you just imagine that? Can you imagine what they must have felt that this whole journey written in the stars led them to this child? And think about what this means, friends. Like I said, you can see this today. Load up any astronomy program that can wise back the clock, set it to Jerusalem, set it to September 3 BC, June of 2 BC, December 25th, 2 BC, and you can see all these things happening right before your eyes, which means when God created the universe, when he created the stars of the Milky Way galaxy, when he created our solar system, and whatever you want to think about how he did that, it's just focus on the fact that he did it, that however it happened, it was at the hands of God. And in it, in the motion of the planets around the sun and the motion of the stars in the background, God wrote the birth of Jesus. He wrote it into the night sky. So much so that people could just be watching the sky, watching the stars, letting them do their thing, and they could see that the King of the Jews has been born. Come to Jerusalem and worship him. Friends, this Bible is not some cleverly invented myth. Even these little details you read in the book of Matthew, people think, like I said at the start, it's just some fanciful imagination, like it's just some color that Matthew invented to sprinkle over the birth of Jesus to make it more dramatic. No, it's real. Every single detail is real, and you can verify it. You can see it with your eyes. These books are true. I mean, how did Matthew know we would have astronomy programs today? How did Matthew know that 2,000 years after he wrote, people would be able to look at a screen and wind back the clock and see the star? How did he know? He didn't know. But he wrote with such precise detail that we can look back at it and see everything the wise men saw. And we can see that God wrote the birth of Jesus into the stars. We can know that Jesus really is God. He really is the King of the Jewish people. And yes, it is entirely right for us to bow down and worship him. So friends, if you have never done that, I just invite you today, drop to your knees, say, Jesus, you are God. If you wrote your birth in the skies, my goodness, I want to know this kind of God. I want to know who you are. Jesus, open my eyes to you. Help me to see you. And then I encourage you, just open the book of Matthew, start reading. Ask God to open your eyes to show you who Jesus is, and just start reading, and you will be amazed at the person you find in those pages. My friends, thank you for joining me in this episode. Again, we love good questions. We love all questions. There are no bad questions. Bring us your questions. Drop them in the comments below. Share this widely. If you got anybody in your life who's got a question, who you know they're a thinking person, maybe they asked you a question and you don't know how to answer it, share this with them. Drop it in the comments. I want to get to every single one. We love good questions here. So bring your questions, friends, because I believe the answer as we dig into every one of these questions and we get to the answer, we'll find God waiting for us there. It's an amazing journey, and I'm just so thrilled to be able to go on it with you. God bless, my friends. Take care.